Gloria Lawler.
Gloria, how are you?
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Come and say hi also. Driving the court. It's okay.
Oh, great.
Get
Yeah.
over there and
Okay, very
meet
good.
some people.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. There you go.
Oh, thank you so much. I normally come more prepared with my water bottle.
Introduce myself, Brian
Oh,
Gibbons.
hi, Brian. Denise again. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Brian Gibbons.
Brian, Gloria Lawler.
Gloria,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
Uh-huh.
Gloria, how long have you been on the commission? Have you done it before?
On this commission, no, I'm from the state council.
Yes, that's right. Pretty nice to
And you?
I am from the Quincy State
Oh,
Council.
wonderful.
To get set, it's off right now.
It's off?
Yeah, I know it's hard to see. So if they want to test it,
Little thing is very hard to see.
Okay.
When it's now it's on. Now it's on. Now light on, no light off.
All right, here we go.
That
It was just a moment of here. I knew they were going to be a spoiler, but we were jumping around and
We
carrying
were
on.
too in my living room, and
Now, are you from over there? You lived over there all your life? Or
I
you?
live. No. I'm from Chicago. My husband is from Catonsville.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. So.
From Chicago. Now, my husband's from Chicago.
Oh really?
But I'm a South Carolina girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And he sees it.
So, now are you
Governor Hogan's
oh, you,
commission.
okay. You are his appointee. Okay. I wonder what the person is in the house. Maybe he will.
Push this in, be a red light up.
It comes on. I see.
It on and off it.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure it's on.
Okay.
I try it.
I think I can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
They're all on right now.
Oh, yes, there you go.
See, we're all on.
No, that means they're all on, so you don't know unless you that.
Well, you can-
That light. Yeah, that light comes on and off.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Little light that comes on and off there.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's light and it's off.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. We are going to begin the first official, newly transformed Interagency Commission on School Construction meeting. It is 9:01, and we will begin this morning. I would like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin the agenda, I would just like to take an opportunity to welcome our new members to the IAC and to thank them for their willingness to serve on this very, very important mission as we look at our school system's safety and facility needs across the next year. So I'd like to welcome each individually. We have Gloria, is Layla? Lala, wonderful. And Gloria is a past senator, and we thank you for your service. And she is currently the CEO of Senior Family Supports in Prince George's County. So welcome and thank you for serving on this. We really appreciate it. We're still waiting for Barbara Hoffman. Senator Hoffman was on the prior IAC, and we're hoping she can make it today. We also have Denise Avera, and she is from Cantonsville or Catonsville? Okay, somebody put an N in here. I thought that's a new town in Maryland. She is a former, she's a former PTA president, and she is in commercial furniture sales. So welcome. We really appreciate you being here. And then we have Richard Lombardo, who is certainly a very familiar name in Maryland. In Harkins Building, you're the past CEO of that wonderful organization, and we're very, very happy to have your expertise on the board.
Thank you.
And then to my left is my colleague, Secretary Ellington Churchill, and he is an excellent representative, and have worked with him in the past and look forward to working with him in the future. And then from the Maryland Department of Planning, Mr. Robert McCord, also with great experience on the IAC. So welcome back, and we'll look forward to working with you. And then we have Brian Gibbons, who is the CEO of Greenberg Gibbons. So we're really pleased to have his expertise on the board as well. And then our final member that was just appointed is Todd Schuler, who is an attorney from Baltimore. So welcome to everyone, and I look forward to leading us forward to meeting the needs of our public schools and our children that are in our public schools. With that, we're going to start the agenda, and I'm going to refer us to the consent agenda. Well, first, I'm going to officially call us to order. We are actually going to make a couple of revisions to the agenda. We are going to pull off of the agenda item number 4, and we are going to add at the very end of the meeting an executive session agenda. So we will be going into executive session at the very end of the meeting today, and we'll note the reason for that at that time. The consent agenda goes in your books from A through K. And I want to make a note that today we're going to walk through each of these items quickly, but normally we're going to approve the consent agenda as the consent agenda with one motion at our future meetings. So today we'll note what they are, then you will certainly have reviewed them before the next meeting, and we'll do a motion for all consent items. All right, so with that, let's start on page 1, which is the approval of the May 31st, 2018 minutes. Again, I'm going to walk us through it, and we will take one vote at the end to approve the consent agenda. So the minutes are detailed under tab A. Under tab B, these are the contracts that are normally we're going to see very frequently in our agendas. These are routine contracts. The IAC staff always reviews the contracts very carefully and recommends our approval. So usually, unless there's any questions, we will just go ahead and approve those particular contracts.
Madam Chair, there was a question brought up by DGS on item number 2,
Okay?
and I don't know if Clarence, would you want to address that issue? This is the Anne Arundel Middle School. Is there still an issue? Yes, is that still on the agenda, or did you pull that approval? You've pulled the approval on that? So, Madam Chair, that item
All
number 2
right, so
would need to be
item number
struck.
2 will be struck for Anne Arundel Middle. All right. Under tab C, we have the Prince George's County cancellation of the projects that are listed below. Under tab D, the cancellation of a contract award with William Wirt Middle, again, for PG County. Under tab E, Baltimore City reversions, and the projects are listed. Under tab F, completed project allocation resources, the total reversion there is listed. And under tab G, the approval of closed projects, pardon me. Under tab H, contract allocation amendments that have to do with Wycomico, Anne Arundel, and the counties that are listed thereafter. Under tab I, approval to establish the 2012 supplementary appropriation project allocations. And if I could just take a second and have Executive Director Gorell talk about why we have those, just so that the new members understand, because this is something else we see frequently in our
Thank you.
books.
So we have our total projects that are allocated, and we make adjustments through the year, and this represents those adjustments so that we keep a square set of books.
Okay, all right. And under J, we have the CIP technical revisions. And there are reductions in 2 projects. And then under K, sufficiency standards technical edits. I would like you to give a little background on that one too as well.
Thank you. So on the sufficiency standards, those were adopted in May. These are educational standards, the first that Maryland has, that define the very bare minimum of what spaces must have as far as facility attributes to support the educational programs required by the state of Maryland to graduate. I didn't have my mic on, so I'm going to start again. The sufficiency standards were adopted in May by the Commission. These standards represent the very bare minimum that is required for educational facility attributes that support the curriculum and programs that are required to graduate in the state of Maryland. With those, they will be used along with other measures to determine the sufficiency of an educational facility to be a learning environment that's safe and healthy. After that adoption, there were some editorial changes that were very simple language-type changes that we have made to them, and we've made note of those and included them so that there is a clear record.
Okay. Thank you. So that finishes the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 2 in your book, and that is the Comar waiver. I'm sorry, that is the construction cost per square foot, and I'll let Executive Director Bob Gorell talk about that.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we have 2 motions. and I'll explain. The first motion is based on a view and review of all of the building that we have records. We have a small sample set whenever you consider how many samples you need to really understand square footage, because every school building has different attributes about it. So we also look at the national level of understanding using our. We also look at the national level of understanding using RS means, Vermilion, and other indices to understand how much has construction inflated over the past year, because this number is very important when we make awards to LEAs for their projects. We had recommended a 3.9% increase over last year, which is very close to the national average that was just published last week for the first 2 quarters at 4%. So we're comfortable with our recommendation. That's the first motion. The second motion, which we are also recommending and actually favor, is it puts a little bit more on top of this year for inflation because, and again, we're taking numbers from last year that we've always used and adding a percentage on top. We're not just looking at the square foot cost, we're looking at percentage of inflation, not the actual cost, because that is Maryland's only, and we do that from our sample set. The second considers that we are losing the LEAs. When I say we, the LEAs are losing 2.5% potentially of the funding for their projects, because the state will no longer review or fund a contingency for change orders. So that means that the cost on average is going to go up a little for all of the LEAs. If they were 50% LEA, state and local share, that would be 1.25%. So we are making a recommendation to for this year, so that we set a new baseline of our square footage to make adjustments either up or down going forward, to increase slightly to compensate for that, to hold harmless this the change that has occurred to LEAs. And that's the information. I provided more detail in the background below.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
How does this $315 a square foot compare to the surrounding jurisdictions, states, District of Columbia, their cost per square foot for school construction?
Generally speaking, as far as the adjoining states, it's relatively close. The further you get away from a region, the more that they vary. However, even within Maryland, it depends on the day that you bid. If there's a lot of competition one day, we get lower prices. Sure. If there's less competition, we get higher prices. And parts of the state also have different advantages. So this is a number that we synthesize based upon a review of all of the information.
And it's pretty similar to the Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware.
For public work, it's pretty similar for public work.
Yeah, for school construction.
I'm going to make sure your mic's on. Just press your button. Let me just give a little tiny lesson on the mics. They're very tricky, unfortunately. It's probably just a good idea to go ahead and just press your mic on so that it's there when you're talking. And you just press it once, and then you should be on. We had a state board meeting just this past week, and we're still learning how to do this properly. So don't worry if you didn't get your mic on. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
And this would be
Madam
for the
Chair.
For the second motion, Madam Chair?
Oh, yes.
That's a
Question?
question.
I move to adopt motion number 2,
Okay.
to adopt the FY 2020 statewide per square foot school building cost of $318 per square foot for building and $378 per square foot for building and site work.
All right, so we have a motion for the second part of that. Any seconds? Questions?
I had a question before.
Sure.
Before the motion. I'm sorry. I had a question before the motion, so I just want to make sure I understand. This is one or the other.
Correct.
This is not both.
Yes.
And because I heard that you recommended both, but Bob, you are recommending the 318 and
Yes.
the 378.
We're recommending the second motion.
Okay. All right. And I only had one question concerning, not so much on the per square foot cost per building, because that is normalized across the industry, but how did we get to the site number, which is basically $60 a square foot on site? And is that account for all regions of the state?
Secretary Churchill, that's a good question. It's 19%, and that number has been carried forward year after year by the IAC. It might be time to do another review of that. There was a big increase in site cost 3 or 4 years ago with new regulations that passed, and that study was done at that time. But if we can find some time, we need to go look at that again.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, so we're now going to go to the third section in your book, Roman numeral 3, and it's a Comar waiver, the modified CIP for Baltimore City HVAC allocations. Executive Director Bob.
Thank you,
Gorer.
Madam Chair. So this $15 million was allocated for critical life safety health issues, and in Baltimore City. As we look at the way that our Comar is written, it's designed more generally to ensure that the state is protected from spending on small projects, on making sure that there is a state and local share. Baltimore City has always had trouble with their local share. They have a very small, I believe it's $17 million a year is all they have. And we know from past experience that they've been able to unable to move projects forward. And so looking at the intent of the legislation to repair things that are life, safety, health, and that they're critical, we worked with legal counsel and determined that this is feasible and proper to be able to waive certain items, and those items are listed, which are the fact that we will help with design costs so that they can get the best deal. We will fund 100% state share without local share. That the local submission dates will be waived so that we're not within the normal Comar full cycle that as we're all aware of, and we can just get these done right away. And the requirements that projects can be less than $200,000 because we know that we have some small things such as a new pump on a boiler that would need to be replaced that repairs the system, but it's far less than our previous medium, or the minimum that we would use otherwise in the normal process. And then to waive the maximum state allocation requirements to allow allocation to be modified if actual costs exceed preliminary estimates. In other words, we don't want it to stall because we get a cost that came in a few dollars higher, and there's no way to move the project forward. We will still review those projects, make sure it's reasonable. And if it's not reasonable, we'll absolutely ask them to go and get some more bids and make sure that we get a fair deal. Everything else will remain the same.
Questions on this?
So Bob, we're talking about spending the $15 million this way and not having to meet a threshold of $200,000.
That's correct, Secretary.
So,
Yes.
and everything else that you explained, I understand that.
Yes.
And we just approved like $14 million in reversions also for Baltimore City in the reversion part.
That's right.
Okay. I'm happy to support it. I'm just trying to understand that this is $15 million that's different than the $14 million
Correct.
in reversions.
It is, Secretary McCord, and the reason for some of those reversions are lengthy, and we're prepared to answer that. Those issues and problems that seem to be the root still need more investigation, but we're trying to get past those root problems. Everything we recommend will allow us to get past those root problems on these critical items.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the waiver for Baltimore City for the $15 million.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
All
Thanks.
right, we have a motion, a second. Any other questions? All right, those who approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries again unanimously. All right, now we're going to go to Section 5, which is the reversion of the 2014 Security Initiative funds. Explanation on that one, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, Kim, would you mind coming and explaining?
And I'm going to take this opportunity for Mr. Gorel to introduce the IAC staff.
Oh, thank you.
So if you will stand when your name is called, and before that happens, I would also like to introduce our Office of Attorney General is Lydia Hoover, who is seated at the table, and she will be at our meetings, or Elliot Schoen, either one, or both in some cases. So thank you for being here. Also like to introduce Liz Kameen, who's in the office, who is the Attorney General for the State Department of Education and the Superintendent, and oversees all of these folks in the AG's office. So appreciate having their support to this crucial mission. So if you want to take that opportunity to introduce your staff.
I would, and there's, Madam Chair, there's also some designee staff that are there also.
Wonderful. We'll do that as well.
I'll focus on my staff. Arabia Davis, she runs our CIP program. Thank you. Jamie Bridges. Jamie is our only project manager for the agency, and he's assigned to Baltimore City because that is an issue
A need.
I shouldn't say it's a need, full of issues that are very real, and Jamie's doing a very wonderful job. I'm going to brag on him a little bit later as well. Carrie? Carrie takes all of the invoices and pieces of asks back and forth, keeping track of everything. It's a tremendously large job, and Carrie does it wonderfully. She is on the phone constantly with LEAs, making sure that their packages are complete. If something is missing, she tries to help them get so that things can keep moving. Thank you, Carrie. Robert is new to our staff, and he's really a jack of all trades. I'm so pleased to have him. As we learn going forward, he keeps inventing new things for himself. He's self-motivated, and we really appreciate him. He assists Carrie, he assists Jamie, he assists me, Kim, Alex, almost everybody, and certainly Cassandra, who I'll introduce next, in our work. Cassandra is is my right-hand person. She keeps things organized throughout the office and keeps us all on the straight and narrow. Kim, Kim, go ahead. Kim Spivey.
Oh, okay.
Is our financial person. She is new to this position about 9 months ago, but she knows the agency inside out and is able to be our go-to person whenever we are trying to understand how did we do it in the past, how can we do it differently, and we are turning over rocks every day. Everything that we do, we ask why. Kim is the first person I go to ask why. Alex Donahue is on our contract, and he is doing special projects. He worked, of course, on the sufficiency standards, having very open, direct links. We had meetings throughout the state with the LEAs, as well as the Department of Education and all of your curriculum folks on pulling that together. He's currently working on the RFP, pulling that together. He has a background as a principal and a principal of principals in D.C., and we are so happy to have him working with us on our staff. I'm sorry, I almost skipped over Shantia.
Yeah.
Shantia is another one that wears multiple hats. It depends on what needs to be done, but she is the face almost that anybody that walks in gets to see first, and we're glad of that. Thank you, Shantia. Joan. Joan is a Deputy Director of the Interagency Commission, and I should say that our name has changed. Reminds me, we were the Public School Construction Program, and nobody really knows why it had the name, but as we move forward, it's now the Interagency Commission. We are clearly your staff. Thank you, Joan. Joan's is working on safety mostly these days. It is such a broad subject that is so important. Joan has devoted herself to that. Let's see. Have I missed anyone? I think that's our staff.
And then would you like to introduce the folks that are here for you, Secretary McCord?
Thank you, yes. My designee is Michael Baer. Michael Baer is from the Department of Planning. in the infrastructure section, and he's assisted by Kristen Humphrey, who is another planner from planning. So they're my go-to people on school issues.
And Secretary Churchill.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. General Services is lean and mean. We can't afford all our staff. No, I'm just joking. Just joking. A moment of levity. I'd like to introduce Clarence Felder, who's our program manager for the what we call the Public School and Community College Construction Program. And so he has a vast experience in the world of construction, and as a matter of fact, we pulled him off of some of our key projects. That's what he was working on previously, one being the Pratt Library. So we're happy to have him as a part of this process. Thank you.
It's an amazing restoration. I was there about a month ago. I just can't wait to see the end product. It is awesome, you're right. All right, thank you. And just so we all know who we are, I'd like to introduce, we have some staff from the governor's office. So Cassie, you want to stand up and introduce yourselves, and then Caitlin?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cassie Shirk, and I am a policy advisor in the governor's office, mostly focusing on education policy. So I'm happy to be here.
And I am Caitlin Morrison. I'm the executive assistant to the governor's chief of staff, and I've been helping with school safety legislation a while.
All right, and we have Kyle Seifert from Department of Legislative Services.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Seifert. I do the K-12 budgets as well as the community college budgets for DLS and the General Assembly.
Excellent. And I'd like to introduce my new employee, Zach Hand, just started yesterday. And he's going to be doing special projects, and two of them that he has been handed today, this morning. One is the IAC to assist me with that work, and also school safety. So we're thrilled to have him just recently from an internship at the Maryland Association of Counties. So we're very, very thrilled to have him. So we probably haven't introduced everybody in the audience, just about everybody. If you haven't been introduced, we're thrilled that you're here. So thank you very much. And now, Kim, would you go ahead and explain this item on the agenda?
Yes, thank you. The item before you is our final report on the FY14 Security Initiative. The projects have all been finally expended, and the item that we're asking you to act upon is the reversion of the $1.19 million that's remaining.
All right. Any questions on that reversion?
I'm not, what does that, I don't. I'm
You
not
want to
familiar
explain
with
that,
term.
Kim?
Right. These are funds that were not expended, so they're unused. We had an application period for the FY14 Security Initiative, so it would be reverted back to the state for use elsewhere.
I see.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried again unanimously. All right, we're going to move to Section 6 in your book, and this is the fiscal year 2019 School Safety Grant Program applications. And this is very, very important. This is one of the most important things we're going to do today, is to unleash some grant funds for school safety. So I'm anxious to hear our Assistant Director's report on these grants. You just have to press it once.
I did.
And you're
Can
on.
you- I'm on? Okay, thank you. All right. Well, good morning. The School Safety Grant Program, what we are terming the SSGP, was established with the passage of HB 1783, which, as you all know, is the 21st Century School Facilities Act. We're requesting your approval today for staff to release an application to solicit school safety projects from LEAs and the Maryland School for the Blind. We're releasing that for $10 million out of a total of $20 million in the budget available for this program. The language of the School Safety Grant Program states that the funds should be distributed to LEAs based on deficiencies identified through facility risk assessments, and provides a few examples of what type of improvements should be eligible, and those are in the motion. We have interpreted these improvements to be focused on deterrence of shooters. That was our approach to this. I was assigned to look at the history of gun violence in schools and research the physical attributes of improvements that are most effective in providing safety and security. There is an abundance of information out there, but we found no empirical evidence that supported universal facility attributes that could be considered valuable to protect students and staff from or during a shooting event, and that could be used to perform uniform facility risk assessments. So what we have before you is a motion to allow us to release this application. I believe you all have received the procedures guide. There is just one small change. The motion was released before the procedures guide. There is a little bit of a change in the schedule. We're asking that projects be submitted by April 1st, 2019 for IAC approval. There are a few other things within the motion that we would like to discuss. And those are the method for assigning dollars to LEAs and the Maryland School for the Blind. And if we, whether they be based on enrollments or square footage. Our motion is for the enrollment method. And if the other item, part of this, is to decide if the IAC will delegate to staff and the designees for approving these projects and come back to the commission with a report.
So I'd like to just add a couple of things. Since I have another role as the chair of the School Safety Subcabinet, and so there's a lot of interaction between our work together. I just have a question. I just want to refer I don't know what, I guess it's page 3 of the actual procedures document, which I thought, by the way, was very well prepared by staff. I just want to compliment you on the clarity of that document. I just want to, for the record, read the kind of things that we're looking for that are eligible for security projects. So that would include secure and lockable classroom doors for each classroom in each school, an area of safe visual refuge in each classroom in the school, surveillance and other security technology for school monitoring purposes, and other security and safety projects as identified by the LEA. These projects will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis based on the description provided, supporting documentation, local board policies, and availability of funds, technical merit, and cost effectiveness. We wanted to make sure that we valued the local school system's needs that we might not have identified. So that is why this category is there, and I wanted to make clear that we are open to looking at what those needs might be. There is a list of things that aren't eligible, and they make sense. And I'm not going to read them aloud, but these, obviously, we have to set the priorities. If you look on page 7 of the packet of the procedures manual, you will see the listing of the grant allocations to each of the local school systems for the first $10 million of these funds. And you can see that it is based on the equivalent, full-time equivalent enrollment of that school system. So I am suggesting that the IAC may want to review that after the first round goes out. There may be some tweaks that we want to make to the way that we allocate these funds for the second half of it. And the other question that I have for our staff is there any way that we can expedite these so that we're not waiting till next spring to give the money out? I just think it's too long of a time. So I wanted to see if we can up that to be certainly before April of 2019.
We will do everything to encourage LEAs to submit sooner.
Right.
And Madam Chair, on that point, we already have a survey out because we want to understand the order of magnitude throughout the state of what local needs are and what their perception of those local needs are. So that's already out. We're expecting those results back September 5th.
Correct.
With that, I think that we can bring other decisions back to you. And I think because the LEAs are going through that process that we've already begun, we can speed this application process.
Right. I would just like to suggest that we would accept them as soon as they come in. and work on them as they come in on a rolling basis. Instead of saying that everything's due in April, I'd like to say, if you get your application done in October, then we'll look at it at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, that's good direction. We have worded the motion to allow us to do that with your authorization. You're authorizing the funding, and then we will develop the procedures and methods, and we can do that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Secretary McCord.
Yes, thank you. I was looking at this and trying to go back and forth between per pupil and per square foot, and trying to look at the difference when we did that. And I understand it's about the pupils, but if there's a larger amount of space that needs to be protected with fewer number of students in it, it won't make any difference how many students are in that space. So there are some discrepancies between the two methods.
Right.
And I get torn about how to really allocate that. And I know we're trying to do a broad brush, get it out right away. This is 10 million of the 20 million that's eventually available. My suggestion would be to consider 5 million one way and 5 million the other way. It might normalize the difference between the two to do the space. It shouldn't be that much math to figure that out. And we could figure that the amount for each county would be based on the 5 million per pupil, 5 million per square foot. Because I'm concerned that in some square foot situations, there may be higher risk in some of these places that we're not considering when we just look at how many students. And so I think we've covered our bases if we do 5 million each, and for each way. I think we'll come out somewhere in the middle, and we'll have the best that we can do. That's just my proposal.
What does everyone else think about that?
Seems like
It's got logic to it.
Our recommendation was based upon and it's simple, it doesn't mean anything more than it is. The legislation for the non-public schools was on a per-pupil basis. So we thought, well, let's follow that as a first choice. But what you're describing, we can do. It wouldn't just be an average, but we can come up with a defendable formula if you authorize us to be able to make that balance.
What I'm saying is that if we did the first 5 million per pupil and the second 5 million per square foot, then the two amounts together would end up being
Very good.
end up being somewhere in between where we have, and then you won't have such a wide swing.
Kim, do you want to respond to that?
We did something similar.
You can come up to the mic, please. Thank you.
I was just want to suggest that we had done something similar to that with the QZAB program several years ago, where they received 50% based on their per pupil and 50% based on their
So we
square
have a
footage, and
precedence
then
for
came
that.
up with- Yeah, there is a precedence for that.
Right, and my first impression, of course,
Based
is
on-
we're trying to protect the kids, so the number of kids is important. But if we have 30 kids in one space and only 20 kids in another space, that space needs to be protected also, no matter how many kids are in it. And so I was going back and forth thinking, in order to split the difference there, it might make sense.
I think that's an excellent idea, and if there's agreement, I see some consensus and head nodding. Can we have a motion to that effect? Secretary, you want to go ahead and amend it?
I can amend the motion then, yes.
Please.
So make the motion to direct staff to release an application to solicit school safety project from LEAs and Maryland School for the Blind with a maximum total allocation of 10 million. Each LEA's distribution will be proportional to the share of the total 10 million as identified. So the motion is proportional to the share of the 10 million as identified in Table 1 and as proportioned in Table 2. You have a Table 2. So it's 5 million out of Table 1 and 5 million out of Table 2 on that proportion. So the numbers in the tables will be adjusted based on a total allocation of 10 million. 5 million for Table 1 and 5 million for Table 2, effectively allocating based on per pupil 5 million and
Yes.
per square foot 5 million.
We use the percentages from each table against the 5 million in each table.
Very good, that's it.
And then would you also like to, not to lead you, but would you like to add to that we would accept the applications as soon as possible and respond on a rolling basis?
We would respond to the applications as soon as possible, yes, on a rolling basis.
You referred to tables 1 and 2. Could you?
You mean attachments 1 and 2?
And
Or does
what,
it say table?
It-
I'm on page
Page 127 and
Okay.
page 128 of our
I
materials.
had pulled mine out, so,
I'm sorry.
in the book.
The book
Secretary
on
McCord,
item
the-
4, sorry about
Sorry, that's the option, the motion option, so I believe that you would like that option to move forward, so that it reads, to delegate authority to approve eligible projects within the total LEA allocation to IAC staff and IAC designees with a report of project allocation submitted to the IAC at the regular scheduled meetings.
Yes.
That allows us to do that.
that option, yes. Next time I make a change, I'll make the motion, have it ready for you. Sorry about that.
I just think it is, I mean, this shows process, this shows good thinking. I'm very pleased with that idea, so thank you for thinking out of the box.
Thank
All
you.
right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second the motion, Madam Chair.
All right, second, do we have any other questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries again unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to move to tab 7 in our books, and this has to do with our facility status changes, and they are labeled in the lettered tabs following it. So we're pleased to have our planning office here to go through each one of those. Thank you, Michael.
Is this on? Okay. Just as a point of information for the new members and also an update for the prior members, we haven't had any approvals since May, so these items for facility status changes are generally pretty routine, but we have a number of them today because we haven't been reviewing them with official approval, which is your role to kind of understand these informationally and to approve the ones that require that. So we'll go through those. I will mention also that those who have been on here, we have been working with Michelle Wise very closely to document and possibly streamline this process for the LEAs to make it simpler for everybody involved. And so you'll notice, those who've been on the IAC previously, that we've changed the format slightly to reflect that. We're also doing some other procedural things to streamline that process. So I appreciate all of Melissa's work on that. So I'll go ahead and go through these items for you. The first one is the approval of a lease agreement for Carroll County, the former New Windsor Middle School. The background for this is on March 8th of 2017, the Board of Public Works approved the transfer of New Windsor Middle School from the Carroll County Board of Education to the County Commissioners of Carroll County. The outstanding state bond debt totaling $43,305 was paid, and with no remaining outstanding bond debt, the county is entering into a lease agreement for $250,000 or 24 months with an option to purchase the property after 2 years built into the lease agreement. The state is entitled to a pro rata share of the proceeds not to exceed its investment in the property. The motion is to approve the lease agreement with the condition that the county will share the lease and sale proceeds due to the state. Okay.
Any questions?
Okay. So then in this case, the motion is to approve the lease agreement between the County Commissioners of Carroll County and New Windsor Holding LLC with the agreement that the state will receive its pro rata share of the lease and sale proceeds as determined by the IAC and county staff for the disposition of the former New Windsor Middle School located at 1000 Green Valley Road, New Windsor, Maryland, with an option to buy out following 2 years.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, for the second item, I will note at the outset here that in talking with Kim this morning, there may be a slight modification for the debt service amount. So in talking with Cassandra, I think we can go ahead and with this item and then adjust it and provide that information back to you once we've reconfirmed.
That would
If
be
that's
fine.
okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, so in this case, in response to declining enrollments, the Kent County Board of Education established a long-term strategic planning committee to consider long-term facility use and planning issues, including the potential closure of schools. On March 17, 2017, the Board of Education approved the superintendent's final school closure and boundary agreement recommended plan, which included the closure of Millington Elementary School. Millington was subsequently closed following the 2016-2017 school year. The Kent County Board of Education is seeking to transfer the school property to the Kent County government effective July 1, 2018, for a use to be determined.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any questions?
Actually, I didn't actually read the motion, so do you want me to go
Oh,
ahead
yes,
and do so?
I'm sorry.
That was the information, the background, just so
All
you
right,
all have
it
that.
sounded just like the motion, Michael.
No, I understand. So I'm going to go ahead and read the amount in the motion, and we'll go ahead
And
and
we may amend
adjust
it
that
because if
slightly.
it's adjusted,
As you
yes.
can see, it's a very precise amount based on the
Exactly.
debt service calculation, so.
Right.
Anyway, so the motion is to approve the transfer by the Kent County Board of Education of the former Millington Elementary School located at 172 Sassafras Street in Millington, Maryland, to the Kent County government, with the agreement that the county government will assume the state outstanding debt service in the amount of $196,524.27, based on the repayment schedule. The use is undetermined. The Kent County government shall obtain approval of the Interagency Commission on School Construction before transferring any right, title, or interest of any portion of the property.
All right, so now do we have a motion
So moved.
and second?
And second.
All right, any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries again unanimously.
Thank you. The next two are for Washington County, and I will note that we have been working with them to get these transactions completed, as both of them are in process for them right now. The first one is for the approval of a property disposition for the former Winter Street Elementary School. The background here is that the Washington County Board of Education closed Winter Street Elementary School after the 2015-2016 school year. In June of 2016, the Board of Education transferred the property by deed to the Washington County Board of Commissioners at no cost. Washington County has received an offer from the West End Baptist Chapel to purchase the property. On March 27th of 2018, Washington County entered into agreement of sale with West End Baptist Chapel Incorporated for a purchase price of $300,000. Washington County intends to settle the transaction in the summer of 2018, and that's what I've just mentioned. They're in process now. The difference between the sale price of $300,000 and the assessed value of the land of $298,900 is $1,100, and therefore there will be no sharing of sale proceeds by the state. So in this case, the motion is to approve the disposition by the Washington County Board of Commissioners of the former Winter Street Elementary School located at 59 Winter Street in Hagerstown to a private party.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I move.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is a property disposition of the former Job Development Center. The background here is in 1996, the Washington County Board of Education closed the Washington County Job Development Center as an educational facility and used the building for administrative and storage purposes until 2016. In June of 2016, the Board of Education transferred the property to the Washington County Commissioners at no cost. Washington County has since received an offer from Triple Y LLC Incorporated to purchase the property, and on April 16th of this year, the county entered an agreement of sale for the purchase price of $300,000 and also is in trying to settle the transaction this summer. The sale price, again, is less than the assessed value of the land, therefore there will be no sharing of sale proceeds by the state. And the motion is to approve the disposition by the Washington County Board of Commissioners of the former Washington County Job Development Center located at 22930 Federal Lookout Road in Smithburg, Maryland, to a private party.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so the next one, there may be some questions on, maybe a little bit confusing, but I'll try to explain it, and it's not actually fairly simple, but it's relative to a golf course that's adjacent to a school in Washington County in Hagerstown. The Washington County Board of Education is seeking approval from the Interagency Commission on School Construction for the transfer of 11 acres of property adjacent to Pangbourne Elementary School from the BOE to the City of Hagerstown through the Washington County government. The city of Hagerstown has operated a public golf course on the parcel for many years. In 1961, the Board of Education transferred the land to the city with a reversion clause stating that if the city stopped using the property as a golf course, it would be transferred back to the Board of Ed. In 1988 or 89, the city transferred the land back to the BOE in response to plans to sell the land for residential development. However, this transfer was never recorded with the IAC, and the sale and development never took place. Since that time, the property has been surveyed and confirmed as BOE property, although the city has continued to use and maintain it as a golf course. On May 18th of 2018, the Board of Ed approved a resolution declaring the parcel surplus property to be transferred to the city, provided that the property continues to be used as a golf course and the reversion clause remains in place. After the proposed action is approved by the IAC, the BOE will transfer the property to the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County for transfer to the city of Hagerstown.
So, Michael, let me just make sure I understand. That means that if they decide now not to operate it as a golf course, it will revert back to the Board of Ed, who may need the extra land because they have increased enrollment.
Correct.
So that's still available as an option.
Yes. Yes. So nothing really has changed. I think it
It's
was
just
just
making it formalized.
a recognition. And for the new members, these things do happen where there have been prior actions that haven't been fully implemented, and then years later, somebody will notice when they're trying to make another change that we haven't gone through all of the steps, and so something like this is clarified with us. So it's a little confusing, but not that unusual.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't interrupt you. Let me read the motion.
Again,
Sorry.
you do such a good job of explaining, they all sound like motions. Go ahead.
Okay,
Michael.
well, and we can streamline this again as we move forward. I'm trying to go through all the steps today,
That's
just so
fine.
you all are familiar with it.
That's fine.
So the motion is to approve the transfer of 11 acres of land adjacent to the Pangbourne Elementary School at 195 Pangbourne Boulevard in Hagerstown from the Washington County Board of Commissioners for the purpose of transferring the property to the city of Hagerstown for use by the city as a public golf course.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second. Any questions? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and just for your information, item F is just informational items. There are a number of these, as I noted at the beginning, many of them in Baltimore City. They don't require approval because they don't hit certain thresholds of size, or there are certain types like easements that don't have a big functional change, but they're there for your information.
All right, any questions on these items? Thank you, Michael. Very good job.
Madam Chair, if I could, Michael explained at the beginning that we're mapping this process out and working with Department of Planning. It's all of this is everything to do with school facilities. It's a very long game. 10, 20, 50 years, we have to keep track of all these records. So we're mapping this out so that we can build our business management system and take everything we do and put it into a permanent record that's easily searchable so that we can go back and see what's where and how did we get here without the amount of work that it takes to get this information out now is significant.
All right, very good. All right. So now let's move on to Section 8 in our book, and we're going to talk a little bit about our own organization, the newly appointed Interagency Commission on School Construction. The first item for your consideration is the adoption of a letterhead that is on the first page of that Section A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I would like to recognize Jamie. Did he already leave? He not only
there.
is our only project manager, he's our only graphic artist, and we've gone through a number of iterations. We're also very lean and mean, so we have to wear multiple hats. And our printer probably needs replacement. These are actually supposed to be Maryland color, so we apologize. But this is, we feel, looks professional. We believe it gives the information that's necessary for us to be professional across our entire communication palette. We would use this on memorandums of understanding. We would use this on our website to begin to build a new image for the commission. So that it is yours. So as you're considering this letterhead, it's a place to start. We use it for a few weeks and you don't like it, we can come back to the next meeting. But this is the intent, is something that we can use consistently so that it is the commission.
Any questions on this?
Will we do all of our letters in Latin?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yes, if you're ready, I'll read it.
That's okay, I'm kidding.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the letterhead?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion approved. The next item is IAC Signature Authority.
So, Madam Chair, the strict reading of law would mean that everything that you have approved today would require everybody's approval as a board in the permanent record. This motion is intended to allow you as chair, following a vote by all the members for approval, that they would be delegating you to sign those approved actions.
Okay, I just wanted to note, in the second paragraph, it talks about the authority to make emergency allocations up to $250,000. And I'm going to ask that that be checked for legal sufficiency before we make any decisions about it.
Correct, and that is not in the current motion.
Okay.
That's,
I just want to make
that's-
sure people knew that they were not approving that at this time.
Thank you. It's something that there currently is not a way to address an emergency within an LEA, blown-up gas line or something in Kent County that might not have any resources. So we thought it is something that we should study to see if there's a way that we could help out. It's all about keeping the schools open and protecting the kids, so it's just there for information.
Okay. All right, so we'll ask Lydia to follow through on that and give us some advice on that. So the motion is to allow the chairperson of the IAC to sign documents executing action taken by the IAC at an IAC meeting. That's the motion. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All right,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I think. Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion carries.
Thank you, members.
All right, the next item is regarding the IAC meeting schedule. This does not require a motion, but it's simply for your information. We have the next meeting scheduled for October the 9th, and remaining meetings in 2008 are Thursday, November the 15th, and Thursday, December the 11th. And then beginning in the new year, we thought it would be good to establish a regular meeting time. So we're proposing that we use Thursdays, and we're going to be using the second Thursday of each month going forward in the new year. Are there any issues with that for anybody that you know offhand if we use that schedule?
Madam Chair, I have another hat I wear as the chair of the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, and those meetings are on Thursdays also, but they're quarterly, and I will do my best to see if those meetings can be shifted to make sure that
Okay.
I can be here, but there's a potential conflict
Okay.
that doesn't occur except maybe 3 times based on the schedule so far.
Thank you for letting us know, and we'll try to work around that.
Thank
you. All right, with no other further comments, let's move to guidelines for public comment. And this is an item that I have put on the agenda because I think it's very important to recognize that the IAC is a meeting in public. And just like other meetings in public, we will agree to have public comment, but it needs to be as a part of our agenda. We have to get our work done as a public body, as a legislative body. So I am suggesting these procedures, and I hope that they meet with your approval. We certainly invite members of the public to provide their views on certain issues about school facilities and projects. We want to have public comment, which will occur at the beginning of each of our meetings, but it will be limited to 3 minutes, and it will be limited to 10 individuals that sign up until the day before the meeting. We will have all of this on the website so that people know how to get to us and how to sign up. I just wanted to make a comment. We did not have anyone signed up today to speak, so that's why we didn't have public comment recognized. We will, as an IAC, listen to the comments. We will not respond. And we will certainly give our thoughts to whatever is presented to us, but this is not going to be a public forum for a back and forth with the IAC. And I think that's pretty standard of most public bodies like ours. So if there's no objection or any other suggestions, I'd certainly be willing to hear those.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My suggestion might be to consider the concept of the 3 minutes per speaker and potentially 5 minutes for someone who represents a group.
Oh,
You may
that's
be
a
able to
great idea.
accommodate more people that way. If we have a particularly hot issue and lots of people want to speak, if someone says they represent a group representing so-and-so elementary school,
Right.
then they represent that group, then we don't have to hear from 7 other people from that group, and we give them additional time to say you have 5 minutes to speak on behalf of the group. I've seen in other legislative bodies that give extra time for someone representing a group.
Everybody think about that?
I like that suggestion. I'm just curious, what's been the history in these meetings? How much public comment has?
There is no history. This is our first meeting, so there's no history. I'm anticipating that it could be, you could have hundreds of people start attending these meetings once we start allocating projects. And so we have to have a system to be able to get our work done. And so that's why I'm proposing that we certainly invite public comment, but that we have a controlled amount of time for it.
How about written comments? If it's limited to 10
Absolutely.
people, I think we should
We
encourage
always get written comments, and we have a few today to look at.
Okay.
So we certainly invite written comments anytime to the IAC. And then you all will get a copy of that at your next meeting. But good to clarify that. Thank you, Brian, for that. All right. Sounds like we have some consensus on that, and we'll insert another idea on the 5 minutes for someone representing a group. Thank you, Secretary McCord, for that suggestion. So let's move right into correspondence. That's in your section 10. Well, I think that's a 9 Roman numeral. I guess I should know that by now. So this is, again, correspondence for your information. I will let you know that this is, we have had a lot of correspondence about this particular issue, and I think maybe we could just respond a bit of how we are looking at this situation.
Yes, Madam Chair, the last meeting of the committee discussed this issue. There was, this is an elementary school, that there are several options as the solution, whether to replace it, whether to add on, whether to renovate it. And the original request was the one that staff had honored and brought to the committee, and that was to renovate that existing facility. There were questions on numbers of students that would be attending, boundaries and such. That did not limit the county for other options. That's simply a place to start. They could come back later with additional information and change the project as they can support it, and hopefully to gain the IAC's support as well. This letter actually came in late, so it really is representative of the many letters that the committee read earlier.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All right, so let's move to COMAR revisions and recodification, and I think, Bob, you can explain why we have to do this. It doesn't require any action on our part at this point.
Yes, I'm going to ask Cassandra, who's been managing this, to give us a little brief.
So members, as most of you know, there was quite a bit of enacted legislation during the last session that changes many of our regulations. We're now conflicting with current statute. As you mentioned, we're not asking for action on this today. Our plan is actually to send this out to the LEAs in the next few days to start to receive their comments. We're asking that you also look at this over the next couple of weeks and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. In the effort of saving a few trees, we didn't print those files for your books today. We can get you paper copies. and they were included in the PDF that we sent to you last week.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions on that? So any comments that you have, please get those back to, oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Sorry.
I wasn't looking the right way.
It's all right.
Secretary McCord.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on your timing and the process. There's a process to get the regulations in and such, so I guess once you get things back from the LEAs and anything from this body, you'll compile that, and then it has to be submitted for the review process that's
It will be brought
appropriate.
back to this body for approval, we hope, at your October meeting.
Okay.
Then it will be submitted, it will go through the AELR review, it will be published again for public comment. The point of publishing it now for public comment is because substantive changes at that point would require starting the process over. We hope to capture everything now.
Right.
There's a 30-day public comment period. If there are no substantive comments, then it will come back to this body for a final approval.
I appreciate that, and I understand that. I wanted to make sure that everybody else did, that
Very
it's
good, very
it's a
good to
piece
make
of
that point.
process. All right, thank you.
Yes, we have lots of those kinds of processes that we need to
Right.
follow. All right, and then in section C, change orders.
This item is informational, and don't know if Clarence wanted to make any comments on this.
Clarence?
Thank you, members, for allowing me to speak. This is in regards to change orders, and Mr. Gorell mentioned early on that the procedure is changing, but in regards to the information here that we have on the agenda, these are items that have been approved and have been reviewed by the IAC Commission as well as DGS. And we found these items to be acceptable to be returned as contingency items to the school, to those LEAs.
Any questions on the change orders?
Just one question. At Poly, there's a $93,000 change order for UST work. What is UST?
Storage tank.
Yeah, that's an underground storage tank. You have an above-ground storage tank and an underground storage tank.
Thank you.
Or stormwater, correct, Clarence?
It's storage.
Yes.
It could be, I believe in this case, this is an underground storage tank, but I can further clarify that.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the open session of this meeting and that we go into closed session to discuss the contents of a procurement proposal and to discuss matters related to the proposal with the IAC members before it is finalized. Do I have a motion to approve going into closed session?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are now going into executive session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We're going to move right into